weeks strong, 14 still here, waking at dawn when the daylight's near. Mom calls softly and they rise in a line, little feet moving, keeping perfect time. Down to the compost heap and back, learning the world on their tiny track. Braver now, but the cold bites through, gray sky hanging with a hint of blue. Stay close, little ones, the rain might fall, and at this age you're still so small. Mom will shelter you warm and dry, 14 feathers beneath her sky. The wind is low, but it carries a chill, and the clouds gather over the hill. So huddle in tight when the shadows grow. 1 week strong, still marching all alone.
It's Sunday, the 16th of November, and this is Dappledot's second day with me. A tiny Guinea fowl chick, hardly bigger than a handful of warmth and fluff, and already with a story that started far away from here. A friend of mine's son was at a bush camp when he spotted this lonely little body on the ground, freshly hatched, still fragile, and somehow separated from its brood. He phoned his father phoned me, and before long this tiny scrap of life was on my doorstep. When I saw him, I could tell this one was only about a day old, fresh out of the egg. For now, Dappledot is still sleeping inside, sharing a warm little space with Ashpin, and this video captures the first time I ever took him outside. The world must feel enormous to him, but today was an important day because today he met Miracle. Miracle is the sole survivor of last year's brood of 16. 16 tiny guinea fowls and only one pulled through. And his story is something I will never forget. On day 2, also just 2 days old, Miracle snapped his right leg completely in half. The bottom section swung like a little pendulum. It was a horrible sight, and when I rushed him to the vet, she shook her head. "Open fracture," she said. "They don't survive open fractures. They get infection and then it's only suffering." But something in me just refused to give up. I said, "Give the baby back." And so Thomas and I spent days on the bathroom floor, lightheaded, nauseous, ready to faint every time I checked that broken leg. But we kept cleaning it, supporting it, hoping, and somehow a miracle truly happened. Miracle's leg healed perfectly. You can't even tell today which leg was shattered. Same length, same strength, same color. He walks as if nothing ever happened. Much later, when I changed vets, because we don't have many bird specialists in Port Elizabeth, the new vet examined Miracle and asked, when did he have the operation? I said, he didn't. And he just shook his head. Then that's truly a miracle, he said. For the longest time, I didn't know if Miracle was male or female. You know how guinea fowl are. You can't tell until they're older. I started to suspect recently when his legs grew longer. But I wasn't completely sure. Not until today. Because today when Dappledot came outside for the first time, Loyal arrived. Loyal is the male that hops over the wall every day, coming to walk with Spickles, my other saved hen, with a whole story of her own, which I'll tell another day. Loyal took one look at Dappledot, tilted his head, and showed just the tiniest bit of interest. Then he trotted off and fetched Miracle. And what happened next absolutely warmed my heart. Loyal lay off to the side, watching closely, almost as if he was instructing Miracle on exactly what to do. And Miracle? Oh, Miracle took to fatherhood instantly. Protective, attentive, gentle. Not a moment of hesitation, as if he had been waiting his whole life to be needed. So now I know, without a shadow of a doubt, Miracle is a male. Every now and again little Dappledot still scurries back to Loyal, just to check that the first face he saw is still nearby. But the real magic is happening with Miracle, this young fellow who thinks he's suddenly being promoted to dad, even though Loyal probably thought he'd be the one stepping into the role. Dappledot ended up with the younger guardian, not the old wise one, and standing there watching the three of them, I couldn't help smiling at how unexpected life can be. A baby found in the bush, a bird whose broken leg healed against all odds, and a father figure who appeared out of nowhere, ready as ever. Late afternoon settles softly over the yard. That quiet hour when the sun hangs low and everything begins to exhale. It's Dappledot's last little outing before bedtime, a final stretch of those tiny legs and a final taste of daylight before the night wraps in around us. And today Dappledot has company. Miracle is trotting along, as steady and patient as ever, keeping an eye on the little one as they wander toward the front of the garage. Just as we reach the open space, there's a bit of commotion. Soft rustling, a scatter of tiny feet, and then the wild guinea fowl flock appears right on schedule. This is their ritual, their late afternoon walk with their own fluffy brood. They move like a river of feathers, flowing toward the compost heap and back again, teaching the little ones where to look for treats, where to scratch, where life hides under old leaves and broken twigs. The wild flock doesn't linger, they drift away again, as they always do, disappearing back behind the garage and toward the evening shadows of the garden. And suddenly the yard feels peaceful again, as though the world has resumed its gentle breathing. Then it's just us, Loyal, Spickles, Miracle and Dappledot. They begin foraging on the small patch of grass in front of the garage, their favorite spot for a final nibble before nightfall, their tiny beaks dipping into the ground, little feet shuffling through the soft blades, wings giving the occasional flutter of joy. There's something so comforting about moments like these, the day slowing down, the babies exploring while the sun gives its last glow. Dappledot toddles after Spickles, copying their movements, learning the quiet art of being a little guinea fowl in a big world. The shadows stretch longer and the colors begin to cool. You can almost feel the night waiting at the edges of the garden. Soon it will be time to scoop Dappledot up, to tuck the little one into the warm, safe nest prepared for the evening. But for now, for these last few minutes, it's enough to simply watch them enjoy the fading sun, content, curious, perfectly at peace. And so the day ends just as it should, with small feet in soft grass, gentle company all around, and the promise of another morning still to come. Spickles stood on the windowsill this afternoon, framed perfectly by the soft light coming through the glass. She let out that unmistakable female guinea fowl call, sharp, confident, almost as if she was announcing something important to the whole world outside. For a moment she didn't move. She just stared through the window, her little feathers slightly puffed, those bright eyes following something only she could see. I couldn't help but wonder what was going through her mind. It was just after 11 o'clock at night when the first low rumble rolled in from the sea. Along the South African coastline, thunderstorms often built quietly over the warmer ocean air before drifting inland, and this night was no exception. The sky held a heavy stillness, that familiar pressure that makes you pause for a moment, as though the world is taking a slow breath before the storm begins. Thunderstorms form when warm, humid air rises and meets colder air higher up in the atmosphere. The coast is the perfect place for that. Warm air lifts quickly from the land and sea, and as it rises, it cools, condenses, and forms towering cumulonimbus clouds, massive anvil-shaped giants that can stretch kilometers into the sky. Inside these clouds, tiny water droplets and ice particles bump and collide, creating static electricity. Eventually, the electrical charge becomes too strong to stay trapped inside the cloud, and it releases suddenly in a burst of lightning. The lightning heats the air around it so rapidly that the air expands with explosive force. That is the sound we know as thunder. And on this night, the thunder didn't just crack, it rolled. Long, low, drawn-out notes that traveled for kilometers. Along the coast, the moisture-rich air and open spaces allow sound to carry far, so thunder can seem to stretch endlessly across the sky, almost like waves tumbling over each other in slow motion. While the storm gathered overhead, the night creatures kept their conversations going. You could hear the guinea fowl calling in the darkness, their sharp, startled cries rising between the thunder. Guinea fowl are surprisingly alert at night during storms. They roost high for safety, but thunder vibrations can unsettle them, and they call out to keep track of one another in the dark. Beneath their calls was the steady chorus of crickets, loud and relentless. Crickets thrive in warm, humid nights, and coastal thunderstorms often arrive with exactly that: thick, warm air that seems to press sound closer to the ground. Their chirping becomes even more noticeable in the quiet moments between the thunder's long rolls, filling the night with a kind of electric tension of their own. Then, slowly at first, the rain began, a few heavy drops, then a soft rush, and finally a curtain of water sweeping through the darkness. Rain from coastal storms can fall in strong, sudden bursts because warm sea air carries so much moisture. As the storm cell passes overhead, the downdraft, the cold air sinking from the cloud, pushes the rain down with force, creating that powerful drumming sound on roofs, trees, and earth. And then, when the rain settled into its rhythm, a new voice joined the night, a frog, calling out from somewhere near the wet grass. Frogs are quick to respond to thunderstorms. The sudden moisture wakes them, and the vibrations of the rain signal perfect breeding and feeding conditions. Their calls echoed softly through the night, rising between the rainfall and the distant thunder like nature's way of confirming that the storm had arrived exactly as it should. All through the night the thunder continued to roll, sometimes close, sometimes far, sometimes stretching so long that it became impossible to tell where one rumble ended and the next one began. Lightning flashed behind the clouds, lighting them up from within, giving the sky a ghostly glow for a moment before darkness folded back over it. By the coast, storms like this are part of the natural rhythm of summer. Warm days growing heavy, humid nights crackling with energy, and the grand release of thunder, rain, and wind sweeping inland. They shape the landscape, feed the soil, and remind everything living, birds, insects, frogs, and humans alike, of nature's immense and unpredictable power. And so the night carried on. Rolling thunder, the chorus of crickets, the worried calls of guinea fowl, the soft arrival of rain, and finally the voice of a lone frog greeting the storm. A wild symphony under a dark coastal sky at 11 o'clock at night when the world felt at once restless and beautifully alive.